Hello. That's right, it's the Bad Vibes Club. This is a conversation with Kate Liston, who's an artist who lives and works in Newcastle. I was staying with Kate while I did some teaching at Northumbria University. She was really kind and let me stay. And over the few days that I was there, we were chatting quite a lot about affect theory and our interest in kind of emotions and the physical states that represent those feelings. And Kate agreed to have this conversation. We speak about a few of her works. The best way to find out about these is to go onto her website where she's got documentation. But I'll just describe them so that they're not lost as the conversation progresses. The first thing we talk about was an installation called Pedagogical Structures that was in a show called The Scientific Method at the Tetley in Leeds in 2016. Then we talk about Dasein and Casein, which was a performance reading that Kate did, which was associated with some of her research that she undertook for her PhD. And Bolero Shrug is a 16mm film that Kate made in 2016 during a 2-week residency with Hands On Film Lab in Newcastle. And if people want to see that, you can get in touch with Kate or get in touch with me and I can send you a Vimeo, a private link. And the final thing we talk about is called A Film for EBM, which is what I kind of keep referring to at the end as the gym film. She's got a few things coming up. She's doing a workshop with Tess Denman-Cleaver at Audiograph Festival in Oxford on the 17th of March. And Kate has a vinyl album coming out in April with Matt Jenner, John Lawrence and Black Tower Projects. It's another great conversation and it was really nice to speak to Kate and find out more about her work and kind of find out about how she's working with the theoretical areas that I'm really interested in. And that's how we start, actually. I asked her how she found out about affect theory and how she started using it in her work. So enjoy the conversation.
I was doing a show at the Tetley Gallery in Leeds that was called The Scientific Method, and I made a body of sculpture that called Pedagogical Structures. And I was kind of really interested in this form of a lectern and the way that kind of evokes, the way that looks like a person with their head bowed down, and that by reading from a lectern you have to bow your head down, and that both those actions enact the gestures associated with shame. So I was kind of interested in this idea of shame and the idea that by just kind of adopting the position associated with an emotion, you might then experience that emotion. So I had made these sculptures that echoed that form. I was also interested in technology, with mobile phones, like we often walk around with our heads bowed down. Like there's a whole phenomenon within physiotherapy of trying to fix what's known as tech neck, which is where you just kind of walk around with your head kind of permanently down. And just think about what it means for a whole generation to kind of basically look ashamed all the time, walking around the street. Or every time we sit down, we sit with our heads bowed down.
It's very particular, that cupped hand gesture that you take up when you're on a phone as well. It's like the medieval kind of religious painting often has this kind of gesture of like people holding their hands together.
Yeah, it's quite caring, isn't it?
Yeah, or like asking for penance or something.
Right, yeah.
But I haven't ever thought of the lectern itself like taking up the shame pose. And then I guess people form their body around it, right? They're literally just taking up that bowed head posture. Yeah,
echoing it and reproducing it. But then there's also something about, so I did a practice ed PhD, and I wrote about, I actually started the PhD with a piece of writing about a story about the first university in Paris and this event that happened around Shrove Tuesday when a group of students, so they were kind of like students who would have kind of young servant kids, and they sent this kid out to a bar to get some wine to bring back for this kind of student party. And this kind of was like the start of the separation of like town and gown, and the idea of like education as being like privileged or like other than the rest of
When was this then? What?
I think
gives a rough century.
I'm going to say 15th, and I think that's probably wrong. I wrote it quite kind of furiously, gathering from sources. I basically kind of rewrote lots of this same story that I found told over and over again as this like apocryphal tale of the birth of universities. And this kid was sent out to get some wine. He brought it back from a local bar, and it was sour. and the university kids kind of kicked off, and there basically was a big brawl between town and gown, and it ended up with like kind of going to every level of the university, and they threatened to leave Paris. And the way that they threatened to leave was they said that they would shake the dust of Paris off their gowns. So there was this kind of idea of like the base material. But I was kind of just interested in the metaphor of like dust as being like lowly and of the earth, and that as academics they were in their minds and of a high, operating in a higher level, and this kind of like stuff of the city could go back to, we give this back to you, the city stuff. But really I was interested in the fact that this big fight was like part of the story of the formation of this university. And I'd read that like the word study has a meaning of like to battle. Like there's actually kind of violence in the root of that word, and there's something about pain and anguish and like almost violence, and something about almost like using penance, like bowing your head, there's something performative about study, that it has to be arduous, and that kind of seems to be somehow like embodied in that form of the lectern.
But it's also interesting how like it sounds to me, it's almost like when you're telling that story, I'm thinking of it as like a parable of the like Cartesian dualism or something, like people like separating themselves off from the matter, the dirt of like real life, and becoming just pure thinking things or something in the university. And what were the objects you made? You made lecterns. So
there was a lectern scale lectern that had text projected on it that was almost like an auto cue, like it kind of scrolled upwards, and that gave the text of a video that was projected on a wall behind it. It was actually projected from within the lectern. So the lectern kind of housed a projector in it that projected this video on the wall, and then another tiny projector projected this text onto the lectern. So it was kind of animated, I guess, as an object. It was like a speaking object, like an auto cue. And then I had a large, like a giant kind of oversized lectern that kind of looked down on you as the viewer, which maybe also looked a bit like, I was kind of also interested in these, the amount of screens that exist around like shopping centres and universities and banks and hospitals, and often they're like either facing up to you like a lectern, or they're facing down on you and kind of bowing their heads down on you. And I guess the dimensions of the face of the large lectern-like object that I made maybe echoed the dimension or proportions of a television screen.
Because lecterns aren't necessarily for public speaking, right? I'm thinking of things like religious spaces where books are kept on lecterns. You kind of read the book because it's too big to keep somewhere else. I don't really know the history of like the lectern as an object.
Yeah.
But in a public speaking, you're raised up above the people you're speaking to, so you're looking down on the people even as you're adopting this kind of stance of shame or something.
Yeah. I guess, you've just done the talk at Northumbria, and I was thinking, it's not a lectern, is it? There's like a kind of desk. Or is it raised? It's kind of raised, but you can sit behind it. It's quite, because I host that most weeks, and artists choose, like some people really want to kind of sit behind the screen almost. You can raise the screen up so you could be totally hidden. And some artists will have
really
like,
good. Like slowly raising up your face.
And just a voice coming out from behind the screen. Or like you were very kind of you walked around kind of, so you weren't even really.
I was like Britney Spears with that.
You were like Britney Spears.
Loved it.
Yeah. We should have got you a Britney mic.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a different form of presentation, the TED Talk style or something, which is like you're performing a lot more for the audience. I mean, it's interesting. I've done the Bad Vibes Club for a long time, and we don't so much do academic stuff anymore, but we were doing academic lectures for a long time. And some people would come and read their paper. And it's like a bit of a shock when that happens, but it's like, yeah, that's how it works. Like if you're an academic, that's how you do talks. You might perform it, but yeah, you've always got your ideas written down, because it can be quite particular, that thought process. Whereas today, I was doing an artist lecture, so I was just kind of like bouncing around and thinking about things. I don't know, like with the TED Talk as a format is somewhere in between, where like they're kind of faking spontaneity or something. It's clearly a rehearsed talk, and they've done it many a time, but they're not looking down at something. They're performing exuberance.
Yeah, and
in opposition, I think, to that shameful
earnestness, and Actually, so one of the first people I heard talk about that thing of the reading making you kind of look down, it wasn't actually talking about in terms of being shameful, but Holly Pester did a talk at Northumbria a few years ago. That was part of a poetry conference, and she definitely talked about this kind of that the poets in poetry readings, even though they know their own poems, will hold most often like the actual book, or there's a kind of
like a published book, like
the book that has their poems printed in, and there's a kind of this kind of earnestness. Maybe she was talking more in terms of like that there's a sincerity or a kind of sense of like meaning that is different, even though you know it. So I've made this other work called Dasein and Casein, actually, which we could talk about.
What's it called? Dasein and Casein?
Dasein and Casein.
What's casein?
Casein is a protein found in milk. So milk has whey and casein, and casein is it's the more abundant one. It's the more gluey one. It can actually be used to make a glue. It's used within bodybuilding as a protein supplement, and it's usually taken at night because it makes you very sleepy. It's, I guess, the lactosey part.
Right, yeah, okay.
And it is very slow to digest, so people take it at night, and it's this way of absorbing protein as you sleep. Kind of the way it's marketed is it's like, as you'll knit your muscles back together, you'll wake up stronger.
That's a good tag. Is that the tagline? Wake up stronger.
No, it should be. I should brand it.
And what's Dasein? You go for Dasein.
I'll go for Dasein. I'll get Dasein wrong. So the way I described it in this piece of writing that I've performed is that Dasein is the most basic way of being of human beings, and it's a way of always being in relation to or being towards the world, or like a world which could be a social context or a set of social parameters. Like at work, there's a kind of world that you exist in at work, and they're always kind of being in relation to this set of parameters.
And that's originally like Martin Heidegger's term.
Yeah, so Martin Heidegger, and I had attended a Heidegger reading group while I was doing my PhD that didn't last a very long time but had a really big impact on me, and it was around this time that I had started weightlifting. So I do something called CrossFit, which is it's like a franchise really. It's a gym can set up as a CrossFit gym. They have to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like a big global franchise thing.
So is CrossFit a trademark? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that at all. Wow.
So you have to be a CrossFit affiliate if you want to call yourselves CrossFit. Lots of gyms now do pretty much CrossFit by any other name but CrossFit.
But they're not allowed to use that word.
Unless you have gone and got CrossFit training, CrossFit accredited coaching methods. And the CrossFit methods basically incorporate Olympic weightlifting, gymnastics, lots of like high intensity interval training, kettlebell trainings. It kind of borrows from lots of different techniques, and the idea is it's kind of randomized. But anyway, through doing CrossFit, I was learning weightlifting, and my gym is very much focused on weightlifting rather than the kind of conditioning side. So I was weightlifting and going to a Heidegger reading group. So the world of casein and the world of Dasein were kind of around me.
That's such a thing that happens when you're doing a PhD.
Yeah. You've got some time to go to the gym.
Yeah.
And I was kind of into this idea of, so Heidegger obviously also talks about the use of tools as extensions of yourself, and he uses the example that always stuck with me was this idea of a hammer. That a hammer is like, if you are hammering a nail into a wall, that hammer becomes a kind of extension of your arm, and it expands your capacity as a human to act in the world, and you don't notice that it's not you. It feels like it's part of your agency, and the same is kind of true of weights in weightlifting and nutritional supplements. These things kind of in a cyborgian sense that can expand your capacity. And I guess because often the goal of weightlifting, at least bodybuilding style, which is different to what I do, but that is often to physically get bigger.
Yeah.
So there's a visual, there's a kind of, it's quite a kind of potent metaphor.
So being towards like a bigger thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Literally physically expanding yourself through these tools. But so I'd written this text, kind of trying to find a way of like mapping this kind of relationship between these two words that initially just kind of rhymed or looked similar, and that seemed kind of like a funny way to kind of draw a connection. The actual material qualities of casein are that it's very sticky, it's a glue, it can glue things together. So actually that lectern work that I was saying had text projected on it, that was an earlier version of this Dasein and casein text.
Okay.
And then I reworked that into a much shorter form, that bit more of a kind of almost like a poem, and I absolutely like learnt it off by heart, but I still needed to kind of have something to hold, and so I'd kind of shared it at like a reading event, and it was kind of clear that I like didn't really need the bit of paper, and people were saying, why don't you just stand up and recite it? Why do you need to have this bit of paper? So I kind of set about like actually learning it off by heart, but I learned it by drawing kind of mnemonic drawings, that like mnemonic symbols to recall it, with the aim of kind of maybe just using it as a tool for myself. But the way that I've performed it since has always been to draw out those drawings live, from memory, stand up with a bit of paper and read from it. And that is totally to do with that thing of needing to hold a thing. I mean, there's something interesting as well about sharing this drawing process, and you're watching somebody recall something.
Yeah.
The writing itself is very repetitive, and as is weightlifting and bodybuilding. Yeah.
Have you ever done, I'm just thinking about health, and there's like a calisthenics, is that how you pronounce it?
I think so. Is that kind
where
of...
you use your own weight? So
like body weight kind of exercise.
Yeah, you use your... and it just seems interesting to me, because most contemporary understanding of fitness involves, like some kind of tool, even if that tool is like a room or a gym or something, but calisthenics uses the body as a tool. It's like a self-reflexive... that sign or something. I don't know. I'm not involved in any of this stuff.
But is it from like the 40s?
Yeah, it feels like a very old, like Victorian, like people with moustaches, like
but then
pulling themselves up into the air somehow.
The main coach for my gym actually was in the Merchant Navy, and a lot of their work, the kind of training that they had to do was like, what can you do on a ship? You can't bring a load of weights onto a ship. You can't. So it was all kind of like formation stuff. Like not like aerobics classes, but like lots of kind of body weight drilling stuff that you can do just with your own little square of space.
Yeah. So have you done that kind of thing as well, or
not really? Because it's not really like CrossFit.
Yeah.
But he sometimes throws a kind of random workout in, and he shared that thing once about being on a ship, and
and that's something there about like what's possible in a certain space. And there's kind of a link to affect theory as well, because I guess on a ship, you can kind of, that ship kind of limits, it clearly sets boundaries to what you can and can't do. I'm just thinking of, Enclave in where Rez is in Deptford. Across the road is like a power gym. Have you ever been there when they're doing their stuff?
No, but Sarah Jury, always.
Sometimes there'll be like a guy with another guy like hanging off his back, and they run round and then come back. From what Sarah's described to me, I think that's Ironman training. Oh, so that's like, is that another brand?
Sorry, not Ironman. Ironman is like that's endurance stuff. Yeah, Strongman is what I mean.
And is that another franchise, or is that just
I don't think it's a franchise, but it's definitely
an atmosphere that they go for.
Well, it's just like the strongest man in the world.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
because there is a lot of tyres and big kettlebells, is that the word?
And things called Atlas stones, which are big concrete balls.
And you have to like pick them up and grip them as well.
Lots of crazy grip stuff, and stuff. They obviously don't drag lorries, but it's that kind of idea. And it's men and women. It's called strongman training.
That's really fascinating. They play a lot of nu metal. That's what I really like about it.
Our gym's like, see, my gym's not very like CrossFit branded, but CrossFit in general is quite a lot of new metal.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of thought that was. Yeah, I thought that was unique to this gym, but maybe.
No, it seems to be like quite
Seems
popular.
a weird choice for. I thought gyms were all like house music and.
I think there's an idea of, I mean, CrossFit has just become like super popular, and there's CrossFit gyms everywhere, but it used to be almost like a point of authenticity for a gym to be like really, really basic. Like we've just moved.
CrossFit gyms, you mean?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
We've just moved to a new gym, but the old one was like paint peeling off the walls, like dead spiders in all the corners, like not like any gym that not like a gym, like a kind of pure gym or a, what they get known as like a Globo gym.
What does Globo mean?
Like a kind of, like a, like a high street, like a pure gym or the gym group, just a kind of chain gym where there's just tons of machines and nobody talks to each other and they get on a treadmill, those kind of...
and is CrossFit like community based? It's all group
yeah,
stuff? Okay.
And it's you all kind of do the training together, but it's not like a class where you're led by a person who's like, come on everyone, it's not like an aerobics class or something. There's a workout on the board, if you're starting at 5 o'clock, you all arrive and you kind of work through the warm-up, like you're kind of doing it at the same time, but you might not be doing it.
So is it like a narco-syndicalist gym? Like you all make it happen at once?
What's narco-syndicalism?
A narco-syndicalism is like a decision-making process that's like really lefty.
Anarcho, right?
Yeah. So you like, everyone has to agree on everything. And there's no leader and you kind of communally like make things happen.
It probably appeals that there's probably like an anarcho thing going on in terms of like, maybe that like appeal of like a really shitty spit and sawdust kind of gym is to do with feeling like where we all do our own thing. It definitely appeals to a certain kind of person who...
Oh, so you're not working together? Are you on your own? Or?
You do. So you are. There is a coach always.
Oh,
so
sorry.
There is
okay.
a coach, but they're not like telling you exactly what to do, when to do. They might refresh you on the movement. They'll pick you up in your technique if you're doing something, if you're lifting something wrong or whatever. Then the actual workout portion you would set up on the same time, because it might be like 20 minutes, as many rounds as possible, something like that. But yeah, they definitely rely on a sense of community, and in a way that like another kind of gym, like when I was younger and used to be a member of like the university gym or like a pure gym, you'd kind of go to classes as and when, but you wouldn't speak to anyone. You just get on a spin bike and do the thing. And
does it, I mean, obviously you enjoy it, but like, is there a kind of effective quality to like this stuff? Because when I like, the only exercise stuff I do is going swimming, like the idea of like having to communicate with people while I was doing that would be like the opposite of what I want. I just kind of want to get in there and get out.
I know what you mean, and I used to always think I was that person. Like I used to do spinning because I didn't have to speak to anyone. I tend to go in the morning classes because it's quieter in terms, there are fewer people, but I like the fact that, I mean, I would have really, I think, lifted weights as heavy. I never would have had the kind of confidence to go into like a weights room in a normal gym and just like try it out, and it probably would have, I don't know, well, it's pretty dangerous for anyone to do that, but I think young men don't feel that sense of danger. They just have a go, don't they? Whereas it's kind of...
Or you'd have to go through that induction, but it would be a bit embarrassing.
Right.
So like, I'm not sure I want to do this, but can I try it out? That's quite a lot of visibility or something you're putting yourself through.
But so the knowledge, I mean, I'm not sure in terms of like an effective, like wider effective space, but I quite often think of like the knowledge that is physically in that space. So I, in theory, know how to do all of those movements, but sometimes if I try and do them in a different gym or not in that space, I just don't feel I can do them. And obviously that's partly because there's not a coach there. If I'm doing the snatch or something at my gym, I know that somebody's going to correct my form if I'm a bit off. And also there's that thing where you just glance around, you see it, go, oh yeah, that's right, I need to
So that's the poetry book in the hand situation, right? Like that's the like feel better when it's there or something.
Or just that kind of collective knowledge that is partly from watching someone and kind of echoing their movements, and like just visibly being able to see people kind of demonstrate a movement, and partly somebody verbally would talk about how to move better.
And what was the work you made about, you just mentioned the snatch, which is a weightlifting movement, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to describe that movement?
How do I describe it? This is quite hard visual. Right, so
okay, yeah, that's fun. That's a fun thing to do.
So it's one of the Olympic weightlifting moves. So if you see the Olympics, the two movements.
Big Olympics fans, the podcast audience, the Olympics audience.
So the clean and jerk is one of them, and that's the one where the hand grip is a little bit narrower. The bar, like a barbell, so there's big long metal bars with weights on the end. Clean and jerk, people have like a narrower grip. They lift it up very fast, starting kind of almost like squatting down near the bar. They bring it up to their shoulders, they're standing up, and then they like put it in the air and they split their legs. It's called a split jerk.
Oh yeah.
That one. So that's one of them. And then the other one that you tend to see is the snatch. So that's, again, the barbell's on the floor. The hands are really wide this time, and it's almost like starting in a squat position, although it's not quite squat, and your chest is up. And then you lift the bar up as you're standing up. The bar kind of almost tracks your legs, comes into your body, into your hips, and then you kind of, so there's a big kind of shrugging movement, and it kind of flicks off your hips. And very quickly, if you see people do this in the Olympics, who are very good at this and slow down, there's this kind of moment where like the bar stays still in the air. They've kind of flicked it up and shrugged it up, and then they get under it, and then they squat down, and then they stand up.
I think that's a very good description of quite a complex set of physical moves. Okay, and so in terms of weightlifting, you started to do this? Yeah,
so this is one of the movements that you have to learn as part of like it's part of the kind of vocabulary of CrossFit movements. And I was describing to you yesterday, so when I started learning that movement, it's obviously physically demanding. I was learning all of this. My body had never tried, lifting weights or kind of moving in this way. So all of it was totally new. But this movement in particular, I mean, it is known to be like a very technically challenging move anyway. But what I'd noticed is that I just found it really socially awkward to learn and to do in front of people that I didn't know very well, because I don't know how to describe it, especially when you've got the bar in the air. There's a moment where you're crouched, you're kind of squatting down to the ground, your arms are really wide above your head, holding this bar and the weight. And it's like everything is exposed, like people always say, like, if you lift your arm up and expose your underarm, that's somehow a sign of being really comfortable with someone, because you're almost exposing this, like, I guess, vulnerable, like, ticklish bit of yourself.
Ticklish, that's the fun, that's evolutionary psychology.
It's
a ticklish bit, isn't it?
It's a ticklish bit. Yeah, you're basically exposing all your ticklish bits.
Yeah, sure, that's probably a good way of describing it. And that felt awkward because even though that it's like a registered move and you know that you're learning that move, you're kind of exposing yourself or something. Yeah,
so you're exposing yourself. You have to do it very fast, and people were literally shouting, "Be aggressive" at me. Okay. Like you've got to be aggressive with it, and you're supposed to move really fast. You wear these shoes that have like hard soles, weightlifting shoes,
right.
And you should really make a stamp on the ground. Yeah, like make this kind of slant. Like it's quite loud. It's quite everything about it is very loud and aggressive, open, extroverted, and that felt uncomfortable to me. I mean, I guess my character is not loud, but also as a female, like I'm very used to crossing my legs, like holding my arms close to my body, kind of sitting in positions that make my body physically smaller. I was pulled up at the gym for being a bit of a, putting my neck forward and so it just, and I was thinking about like why it felt uncomfortable, which made me think about my previous like vocabularies of movement, this kind of like female, making your body smaller, that kind of thing, taking it, like wanting to take up less space. And then it made me think about what was happening now that I was actually including this. This was part of my, like, every week I was kind of doing this multiple times, even though it was within this physical enclosed space. I wasn't walking around the streets suddenly like doing power
Showing off your
postures.
ticklish bits.
Wasn't showing anyone my ticklish bits outside of the gym, but I had noticed that after doing weightlifting that I was kind of walking a bit taller, almost like sometimes a bit like I'd catch myself mainly in the gym kind of almost walking a bit pigeon chested, like you see kind of guys like a kind of parody of like
themselves out. Yeah.
And it just and what I found really exciting about that idea was the idea that like by doing this movement I might be visibly portraying the idea of being more confident, and then I guess even more exciting than that was like the idea that by visibly giving the outward appearance of confidence that you actually start to just be more confident. It's kind of that power posture thing.
The Tory thing we were talking about.
Well, not the... I mean, it was, what's she called? Amy Cudden. Actually,
Amy Cudden.
So she did I only know her work through this TED Talk that she did, but she did a TED Talk about power postures as a kind of enabling thing for women in business. The idea that if you're going for a job interview, that a kind of trick that you can use is to, before you go into the interview, to go into the toilet, like lock yourself into a toilet cubicle, and then just stand like Wonder Woman, just stand in these like powerful postures, and just by having done that, when you then go into the interview, you just feel more powerful. And that's, like a kind of popular version of this idea, but I think it's got quite exciting potential, and it kind of keys into that thing that we were talking about, the externalization of affects. That it's not that you have like either confidence or lack of confidence or like feeling ashamed or these things kind of deep inside you as kind of innate essential feelings that get drawn out, that they're actually, those affects are produced with situations, with the world, which including for me what I'm interested in is the way that they're produced with gestures that you have learned through through society.
It strikes me that as interesting that in the moment of you taking on the posture of power or confidence or other related feelings, you feel exposed, which is related to the feeling of humiliation or shame, which is ritualistic or something, right? Like, so you're going through the awkwardness or the embarrassment, like it's probably not shame, humiliation, it's probably embarrassment, isn't it? But like, you're going through that and then you transcend into this kind of powerful position or something. And I wonder if like everyone in that room, at least all the women maybe, if we're talking about like the kind of gendered affects or like gendered vocabulary of movements, like have been through that and they know that you're going through that, and when they're shouting be aggressive at you, my interest is like there are still like those two kind of stages, and like you're in a kind of hierarchical situation where like there's a load of people who feel comfortable doing it but know that you don't feel comfortable doing it, and there's no real way to bridge that gap. Because if you're shouting be aggressive at someone, that's aggressive, like whether you're being really encouraging or not. I don't know, did you feel encouraged or did you feel
no, it was all like, it was almost, I think they thought it was funny that it just in general, it's still like a thing. A lot of people before squatting will like stamp their feet, like there's a lot of like weird rituals that people have for, like I do some strange almost like twisting my ankle just to get it in the right position, and it's totally like almost a nervous tick or something that I'm thinking, I've got to get this I've got to like get myself rooted into the ground before I pick this bar up. And so I think it didn't feel like it was aggressive the way people were shouting, but I think that's really interesting what you're saying about the ritualistic aspects of it, because I guess what's specific about something like the snatches, it is a set movement. It's not like, I guess there might be other practices of movement that are about fluidly, freely finding, these more expressive kind of movements. And but
the snatch, you just got to do it, and you just got to do it right, and people know how that is, which is aggressively. You can't do it non-aggressively. There's no way to do it gently or something, or fluidly. And once
you've learned it, and it's not strange then. Whereas I'm trying to think of a kind of contact improvisational contemporary dance, there might be like constant discovery of
negotiation
of movements.
What was the work that you kind of ended up making?
So I made a film called Bolero Shrug, that was a 16mm film that I made on a residency with a a film that I have called Hands on Film that's in Newcastle. It's run by Leah Miller, who's an artist in Newcastle. And I was kind of interested in exploring the idea of like what happens from learning this movement, the snatch. And I was also interested in the fact that that movement has within it this gesture of the shrug, so the like the most nonchalant gesture within this really aggressive, like powerful movement. And I asked a friend from the gym to to drill the movement, to kind of go through all the drills that you would do with a plastic pipe in a photography studio. And then I tried to teach two friends how to do the movement with broom handles. Actually, they used over Skype. So we went through those kind of movements. I quite often use like small scale balsa wood models that maybe look like architecture, or like very simplified forms that maybe echo architectural structures, and they maybe echoed this shape that the physical form of the snatch created. So I kind of took footage from these elements. I had the cover of a book which had the front cover was a painting of a woman holding her arm over the back of her head, so exposing that kind of underarm area, and that kind of felt like the opposite of this, or like it was a very loose gesture, kind of like stereotypically kind of feminine gesture. I had that book cover kind of in amongst these objects. The Passion According to GH, that's the book.
The Passion According to GH?
The Passion According to GH.
What is it?
Who is it written by? It's probably like...
It's a novel or something?
It's a novel.
Okay.
It's a really great novel. And so I took footage from all of these things, and I also filmed from my laptop screen. So that Skype lesson, I had filmed the laptop screen, and I also filmed... This is all in 60mm black and white footage. So and I filmed a dancer called Maya Vlistikaya performing this ballet to Maurice Ravel's Bolero, that piece of music. It's very... I'm not going to try and...
I'm going to fade it in.
Do it, yes.
I'll fade it in.
He will have a sample. Pause. That piece of music is itself very repetitive. It's almost, I'm sure I read somewhere that it's almost like a kind of supposed to portray like a fugue state, like almost a kind of heightened psychic state. And the dance that Maya Vlistikaya performed begins with this shrugging gesture. It's very kind of small, slight movements, and then she becomes this kind of commander. There's actually a ring of like male dancers on chairs around this circular stage that she's on, and she's almost kind of commanding them up into... They start with their heads slumped down, and they slowly kind of rise up. And I just listened to that music a lot and watched that video a lot while I was making the film. I hadn't planned to actually incorporate it, but then it became this kind of... She almost became like this strange commander of the work. Almost like she was instructing these people to do this movement, and ended up kind of cutting the film to that music from that video. So it actually ends with the applause of the audience to that dance.
How did it feel to approach someone from your gym and be like, oh, can you be in my weird artwork? Is that okay? Like, did they know you were an artist and that this, or did you have to, what's the word?
Confess.
Or I was thinking about, or someone was talking about like coming out as an artist in a situation which was otherwise untainted by your art practice. I always think it's really interesting, like, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm an artist and I want to change our relationship slightly. Yeah. No,
everyone knew what I did, because when I started the gym, I was doing this PhD, so I had to kind of... It's like an art PhD. This is what I, have a studio and stuff. And everyone was like super, like, everyone's just into lots of stuff. So, the main coach from the gym had come to a poetry recital that I was part of. Like,
wow.
you know, people, yeah.
I've got such weird assumptions about gym people.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it's bad of me, I think.
But so Louise, who was in the film, she was really open to it. She was really up for it. She came to the screening, which was down at Cobalt Studios in Newcastle, and I've actually since made a film with like lots of people in my gym.
Oh right.
Yeah.
What's that then?
So that was the show that I had last year at the Hatton, called Feel After the New Sea. I kind of set that my kind of premise for that exhibition was that there would be an exhibition. So there was a kind of installation of sculptures, there was wall paintings, and within one of the wall paintings, some kind of collage films were projected. But the premise was that would be kept as a kind of active space for the production of a new film that was to be added at the end. And the way it was kind of kept productive was that I had two events, one of which was The LARP, which was written by Sarah Jury with Hamish McPherson, who I've worked with, and there was a kind of screening performance event, and I went on a research trip to an archive to look at the work of an artist called Ella Bergman-Michelle, who had kind of informed a lot of the thinking behind the show, and I had a painting by Ella Bergman in the exhibition. So the film that I ended up making, this film at the end, was always intended to be called Film for EBM, so Film for Ella Bergman-Michelle. And I got really obsessed with this drawing by Ella Bergman-Michelle that looked like... So the work that I had in the show by Ella Bergman was an abstract collage, geometric, from the 20s, kind of mostly black and white, very thin kind of arrows spiralling around these two circles, and some kind of broken lines emanating out from the two circles, almost like a kind of graphic score, or like, but yeah, very abstract. And and she had made lots of kind of work that looked quite similar to that, totally abstract, no kind of figuration. But around the same time, she'd also made this drawing that was like totally surreal. It showed 3 platforms with holes in, with flames coming through each of the holes. It was like infested with flies and bubbles. It was just this kind of totally mad, like totally opposite seeming kind of drawing. And I was really obsessed with this drawing and how it just portrayed this kind of like, impossible world. And it almost looked like a kind of 2D platform video game, with the levels.
I know what you mean, yeah.
And so I was imagining this as a space that you could like navigate through with a character. And the title of that drawing was Neuron People, Idea Design for a Film or Theatre Mechanism, with Johan Maltsen, who's an artist who she worked with. And I kind of took that idea quite literally as, okay, I'm going to take this as the idea design for a film that I'm going to make. And that informed the kind of film sketches that was in the show the whole way through. So I made a balsa wood set that looked a little bit like the levels in that drawing, and got a load of flies to navigate that. As just so happens, a friend at work, her partner, runs a company called Bugs and Stuff, and they loan flies out sometimes for film sets when they need a corpse and they need flies on it.
Trained flies?
Well, they're not trained, they're just flies that are bred. They're actually they're bred in captivity, so they don't fly very well.
That's
I
so
know
sad.
It is really sad. I didn't realise that until I did the filming. We had to really encourage them to fly around the set. So there was this, so that I'd made a set that some flies navigated. I got a hamster and a guinea pig to navigate this world. Ella Bergman was very interested in, a lot of her drawings are very like biomorphic, this kind of world almost overtaken by animals, so I was interested in these animals taking over. What I ended up making at the end, this film for EBM, I gave that drawing, a copy of that drawing, to the coach at my gym and asked if he would make a workout based on this drawing.
The schematic kind of arrows drawing, not the flies drawing?
No, the crazy flies
drawing.
drawing.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Which he was totally freaked out by. This is kind of a lesson in, when you think you're giving someone a really exciting gift of like, oh yeah, devise a workout based on this. Oh, and it was that plus my sculptures that I'd made.
Okay.
And yeah, he was kind of like, I'm up for it, but just tell me what to do. Like what. So we basically sat down and worked out a workout to do together that was based on a standard workout that you do in CrossFit that would kind of visually have lots of different kinds of movement going on with it.
Yeah.
And I brought to the gym one of the sculptures that was in the Hatton exhibition, and we used a lot of kind of like on one of those gliders, like kind of panning shots back and forth while people were doing these movements, and applied the same kind of way of filming to the sculptures in the exhibition, and I kind of overlaid the two over each other, and that was the final film. So my gym has been through the rigor of working with me.
They've been artified.
Yeah, they got paid in like snacks and like protein supplements. Yeah.
That's really nice. So you've introduced them to like precarious labour practices.
Yeah.
That's really good of you.
Yeah, that was good. And they came to see it at the Hatton, and then
great.
Yeah, that's good.
But no workouts in the Hatton. You didn't bring.
No,
into the
the art kind of came to the gym. The gym didn't come to the art. That could have been another step of it.
Yeah, maybe next time. Thank you so much to Kate for having me and for having that conversation. Thanks to her partner Dan for cooking a delicious meal while we sat in the lounge and talked. And thanks to you all for listening, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye.